I'm about to reveal something that might shock you, especially if you've been trying to eat healthy for the past 30 years. I'm Dr. John Marston, and after 4 decades as a cardiovascular surgeon, after opening thousands of chests and holding human hearts in my hands while patients' lives hung in the balance, I can tell you with absolute certainty that one of the biggest threats to your arteries is hiding in foods you've probably been told are good for you. Everything you've been told about heart disease being just about cholesterol and saturated fat is dangerously incomplete. You've been told butter is the enemy. You've been told vegetable oils are the healthy replacement. You've been told that switching from animal fats to corn oil, soybean oil, and sunflower oil protects your heart. Except that's not the full story, because heart disease isn't just about cholesterol numbers. It's about inflammation, oxidation, and microscopic damage happening inside your arteries right now. And the oil sitting in your kitchen cabinet could be fueling that damage every single day. Let me tell you about Margaret. Margaret was 72 when I first reviewed her case. Retired school teacher, walked every morning, never smoked a day in her life. Her cholesterol numbers were what doctors love to see. Total cholesterol 188, LDL 110, blood pressure perfectly controlled at 124/78. She followed every guideline exactly. She switched from butter to vegetable oils 20 years earlier because her doctor told her it was better for her heart. She cooked everything in corn oil. Her salad dressing was soybean oil. She proudly told her family she was protecting her arteries. But 3 months before her 73rd birthday, Margaret collapsed in her kitchen, massive heart attack. When surgeons opened her coronary arteries, they found unstable plaque ready to rupture like a volcano. Not just cholesterol buildup, inflamed, oxidized plaque packed with immune cells. Her arteries looked like they had been under chemical attack for years, and this is the part that still makes me angry. Margaret did everything right according to the guidelines. Everything. Yet inside her body, a silent process had been unfolding for decades. It starts with something called oxidized LDL. LDL cholesterol itself isn't automatically dangerous. It's a transport molecule. Think of it like a delivery truck carrying fats through your bloodstream. But when those particles become oxidized, chemically damaged by reactive molecules, they transform. Suddenly, your immune system sees them as a threat. White blood cells rush in, inflammation begins. The lining of your arteries, the endothelium, starts to malfunction. Plaque begins to grow. And here's the crucial point most people never hear. Certain fats are far more vulnerable to oxidation than others, especially polyunsaturated fats found in many industrial vegetable oils. I'm not going to reveal the full mechanism yet, because before you understand why this happens, you need to see exactly how these oils interact with oxygen, heat, and your body's own metabolic machinery. What I'm about to explain next will completely change how you think about cooking oils and heart disease. And before we continue, comment below and tell me your age and your last cholesterol number if you know it. Because by the end of this video, you'll understand something your doctor probably never explained. The real question isn't just how much cholesterol you have, it's what kind of damage is happening to it inside your body. Now we need to go deeper into the biology, because this is the part most doctors never explain to patients. When people hear the word fat, they imagine one simple substance floating through the bloodstream. But chemically, fats are very different molecules. Some are stable, some are fragile, and some behave like dry paper sitting next to a lit match. Polyunsaturated fats, especially the omega-6 fats found in many industrial vegetable oils, contain multiple double bonds in their chemical structure. Those double bonds make them flexible, which is useful in biology, but they also make them extremely vulnerable to oxidation. Imagine your arteries like a network of plumbing pipes coated with a delicate protective lining called the endothelium. In a healthy vessel, that lining is smooth and slippery, almost like Teflon on a frying pan. Blood cells glide past effortlessly. Oxygen and nutrients move efficiently, but oxidized fats behave like tiny sparks landing on that coating. When polyunsaturated oils are exposed to heat, light, or oxygen, especially during industrial refining or high-temperature cooking, their structure can change. They form reactive compounds called lipid peroxides and aldehydes. These compounds are chemically aggressive. When they enter your bloodstream, they can interact with LDL particles. Now imagine LDL as delivery trucks carrying cholesterol through your circulation. Normally, they deliver their cargo and move on, but when oxidized fats interact with them, it's like spray painting those trucks with a bright warning signal. Your immune system suddenly sees them as damaged. Macrophages, specialized immune cells, rush in to engulf them. Under a microscope, I've watched this process unfold. The macrophages swallow oxidized LDL again and again until they become bloated foam cells. These foam cells embed themselves into the arterial wall and form what cardiologists call fatty streaks, the earliest stage of atherosclerosis. Over years, those streaks become plaques, and plaques can rupture. That's when heart attacks happen. Now let me tell you about Thomas. Thomas was 75 when he came into my clinic complaining of sudden chest pressure during his evening walks. He had switched to what he called the heart-healthy diet 15 years earlier: margarine instead of butter, corn oil instead of beef fat, vegetable oil in nearly every meal. His LDL cholesterol wasn't even that high, around 120, but his inflammatory marker, high-sensitivity C-reactive protein, was elevated at 4.8. When imaging was performed, his coronary arteries were loaded with unstable plaque rich in oxidized lipids and inflammatory cells, the type of plaque most likely to rupture without warning. Here's where another biological mechanism enters the story. Omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids compete for the same enzymatic pathways inside your body. Think of these enzymes like traffic officers directing cars through an intersection. If one type of fat floods the intersection, the others get pushed aside. In traditional diets, the ratio between omega-6 and omega-3 fats may have been close to 2-to-1. Today, in many modern diets, it's closer to 15 or even 20-to-1. That imbalance can influence how inflammatory molecules called eicosanoids are produced. Some promote inflammation, some help resolve it. When the balance shifts too far, the body may tilt toward inflammatory signaling. A large body of cardiovascular research has examined these pathways. Studies looking at endothelial function, inflammatory markers, and lipid oxidation suggest that oxidative stress and chronic inflammation play central roles in plaque formation. But the crucial point most people never hear is this: heart disease is not just about cholesterol levels. It's about what happens to those molecules once they're inside your bloodstream. Now we arrive at the second mechanism, and this is where the story becomes even more important for anyone over 40, because your arteries are not just passive pipes carrying blood, they are living organs constantly repairing themselves. The inner lining of those vessels, the endothelium, acts like a highly intelligent gatekeeper. It regulates blood pressure, controls clotting, and releases molecules like nitric oxide that keep arteries relaxed and flexible. Imagine the endothelium like a perfectly polished highway surface that allows traffic to move smoothly at high speed. When that surface is intact, LDL particles pass through the bloodstream without sticking, but when inflammation and oxidative stress begin damaging that lining, tiny cracks appear. Suddenly, those cholesterol delivery trucks I described earlier start getting trapped in the arterial wall. Immune cells pile in. Plaque begins to grow. This is where the second biological pathway comes into play: chronic inflammatory signaling driven by fatty acid imbalance. Omega-6 fats are not evil by themselves. Your body needs them. But in excess, they can be converted into molecules that amplify inflammatory signals. And when omega-3 intake is too low, the molecules that normally calm inflammation can't keep up. It's like a neighborhood where the fire alarms keep going off, but no firefighters arrive to put the flames out. I saw this process unfold in a patient named Harold. Harold was 79 when he came to my office after a minor stroke. Retired mechanic, strong man, worked with his hands his entire life. He had followed the same advice millions of Americans followed: replace animal fats with vegetable oils. For 25 years, he cooked with soybean oil and ate processed foods made with sunflower oil. His cholesterol numbers were not extreme, LDL around 115, triglycerides slightly elevated, but his inflammatory markers told a different story: High sensitivity CRP was over 5. His carotid artery ultrasound showed thick plaque deposits building silently along the vessel wall, plaque rich in oxidized lipids and immune cells, a ticking time bomb in the bloodstream. When the endothelial layer becomes inflamed, the body begins depositing cholesterol like emergency road repair material. But that repair process can spiral out of control. Over time, plaques grow unstable. Their fibrous caps weaken. One sudden rupture and a clot forms within minutes. That clot can block a coronary artery and stop blood flow to the heart. This is the moment people call a heart attack, a catastrophe that may have been developing silently for 20 years. Now here is the hopeful part, because this process is not inevitable. The body has powerful systems designed to reduce oxidative damage and restore balance. Certain dietary patterns rich in natural antioxidants, polyphenols, and omega-3 fatty acids appear to support endothelial function and reduce inflammatory signaling. This is one reason researchers studying Mediterranean-style diets often observe improvements in markers of cardiovascular health. Foods like fatty fish, nuts, extra virgin olive oil, and minimally processed ingredients contain compounds that interact with these metabolic pathways. They don't simply replace one fat with another. They influence the biological environment in which inflammation and oxidation occur. I'm going to show you the exact strategy I recommend to patients who want to protect their arteries as they age. The specific dietary shifts, the foods that help restore balance, and the mistakes that silently accelerate inflammation. But first, I want you to do something important. Comment below with the word balance if you've ever been told heart disease is only about cholesterol numbers, because understanding these underlying mechanisms may completely change how you think about cardiovascular health moving forward. Now let's bring everything together and talk about the strategy that can help support healthier arteries as you age. Because once you understand the mechanisms, oxidation, inflammation, and endothelial dysfunction, you begin to see why certain dietary patterns consistently appear in research on cardiovascular health. The goal is not simply removing one food or blaming a single ingredient. The goal is shifting the biological environment inside your body so oxidative stress and inflammatory signaling are less likely to dominate. Think of your bloodstream like an ecosystem. If that environment becomes overloaded with oxidized molecules and inflammatory signals, plaque formation becomes more likely. But if the environment is supported with nutrients that help maintain balance, the vascular system often functions more smoothly. This is why many cardiologists and nutrition researchers emphasize patterns similar to what is commonly called the Mediterranean diet. Instead of heavily processed foods, the focus moves toward whole foods and minimally processed ingredients. Extra virgin olive oil becomes a primary cooking fat because it contains monounsaturated fats along with polyphenols, plant compounds studied for their potential antioxidant properties. Fatty fish such as salmon, sardines, and mackerel provide omega-3 fatty acids like EPA and DHA, which participate in pathways that help regulate inflammatory signaling. Nuts, seeds, avocados, vegetables, legumes, and fruits contribute fiber, minerals, and additional antioxidant compounds that interact with metabolic processes throughout the body. These foods do not act like a single drug targeting one pathway. Instead, they influence multiple biological systems simultaneously: lipid metabolism, blood sugar regulation, vascular tone, and inflammatory balance. A large body of research has examined these patterns. For example, the PREDIMED trial followed thousands of individuals at elevated cardiovascular risk and observed that dietary patterns rich in olive oil, nuts, and whole foods were associated with improved cardiovascular outcomes compared with some other dietary patterns. Other studies have examined markers such as endothelial function, triglycerides, and inflammatory indicators like high-sensitivity C-reactive protein. These markers help researchers understand how lifestyle patterns interact with cardiovascular risk over time. But it's important to remember that heart health rarely depends on a single factor. Blood pressure, blood sugar control, physical activity, sleep quality, stress levels, and genetic predispositions all interact with dietary patterns. That is why modern cardiovascular prevention focuses on overall lifestyle rather than isolating one nutrient as the sole cause of disease. If you're interested in protecting your long-term heart health, start by paying attention to patterns rather than individual ingredients. Emphasize whole foods, balanced fat intake, and dietary diversity. Limit heavily processed foods that contain large amounts of refined oils and additives. Include sources of omega-3 fats regularly, especially fatty fish. Maintain regular physical activity that supports metabolic health and circulation. Monitor markers such as cholesterol levels, triglycerides, blood pressure, and inflammatory indicators with the help of qualified healthcare professionals. These measurements provide a more complete picture of cardiovascular risk than any single number alone. And if you found this discussion helpful, consider sharing it with someone who is interested in learning more about how nutrition, metabolism, and vascular biology interact. Conversations about heart health continue to evolve as new research emerges, and understanding the mechanisms behind these processes can help people make more informed decisions about their long-term health.